One of the really important figures, I think, on the contemporary jazz scene, that is to say the last 30 years or so, in his own not-so-small way, is a South African musician who goes by the name of Abdullah Ibrahim. He started recording under the name of Dollar Brand, I think probably right around 1960. I remember records of his from about 1962 anyway. And the reason I like him so much is that he's got a definite strong folk element in his playing, and especially in the tunes that he writes. And I've learned a couple of his tunes. John Renbourn has learned at least one of his tunes. They play very well on the guitar, and they're just great tunes. He also does write some very complicated, extremely modern-sounding things. I have to admit I haven't worked any of those up. Some of them would be interesting. Of course, they're much harder to figure out. The one we're going to try to learn is sort of typical in that sense. It's got a feeling of African folk music to it. It's also got a kind of gospel-y feeling to it. And it's a tune that involves a little bit more right-hand work than we've been doing up to now, and some real stretches. It's a tune that's in drop D and played in the key of D, like a lot of folk tunes, and a little bit like Joseph Spence, the great Bahamas player, but this really isn't going to sound much like that. Let's go ahead and I'll try to play you my version of Dollar Brand's great tune, Tintiyana, which means actually little bird, as was told me by somebody from South Africa. So here's Tintiana. As you can see, this is the kind of arrangement that you get when you're trying to adopt a piano arrangement for guitar. And typically what will happen here is that you get a much more complicated bass figure than you would if you were just making it up yourself. This, of course, especially with a player like Dollar Brand, who uses his left hand much more than a lot of the modern jazz piano players who just did most of the work with the right hand and were just sort of accent with the left hand. And what this means is that we wind up with things that are going to get complicated in our right hand. It's interesting how the left hand piano pattern creates a right-hand problem for the guitar. Well, we'll look at what happens with this. We start off, and we're playing this pattern that he would have played with his left hand. Now, if you look at my right hand, what's happening is that I'm having to use my index finger for one note of that. And it's pretty easy to do till we start adding the melody. Now, even that is not too bad. But if you watch my fingers on the right hand, and this is again when we get to the split screen, you'll see better. There's times when it's the middle finger, times when it's the index finger. See there, it goes from thumb on the fifth string to index on the fourth to middle on the fourth. And the middle goes with the thumb on the fifth. Now when we come to the G chord, similar things. Actually, a little bit easier there from that point on. And at the end there, we've got a thing where we can double up on the bass notes with our thumb. And sometimes I do that, sometimes not. Then we get this chordal thing, very gospel-y. At the end, that with the right hand is a little vague. I'm actually, as often as not, just sort of strumming that last chord. You pick these three, as you would expect, the thumb, index, and ring finger on the right hand, and you could either do the strum back with these two fingers, or even just your index finger. Whatever you like. Then we get to a real stretch. I mean, a sort of monstrous stretch. And you have our little finger on the 7th fret of the 2nd string and our index finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. And the reason we're doing that instead of that is just because we're going to kind of strum. And that again with the right hand. Now this is hard with both hands. Hold that stretch on your left hand. With your right hand, you're going middle, index, middle. Middle, index, middle, index, middle. Like that. The rest of it's not too bad. Do that again. When I'm doing this stretch, by the way, sometimes I'm going to turn the guitar over here. Sometimes when I do that stretch, my thumb would be as much as an inch off the back of the guitar. Do whatever it takes to get your index finger there. If you have to have your thumb not touching the back, Andre Segovia will never know. And so just go ahead and do whatever you have to get that. Then you can get that nice strum. If you did it this way, you're not going to really be able to do that. So, and this one again is slightly easier, even though I've got my thumb over here. Actually, if you really just have to cheat, you can use your middle finger. But it's going to make life harder. Yeah, that's not too bad. See, but it's always intricate with the right hand. And in fact, I suggest, especially with this one, that you sort of sit with the tab a minute and make sure you've got all those phrases. And sort of spend a lot of time on each phrase before you try to put it together. Get this same chordal thing. Now, the improvised part in the middle of this is very minimal. Even when I play it in concert, I might stretch it out a little more. But it's there's not much to it. I'm playing sort of around on a D7th. G seventh. Sometimes I do this phrase here, which reminds me of the sort of thumb piano playing, which I got tabbed out there. But the improvisation is not really, that's the easy part of this tune. With a lot of jazz, of course, that's where you really get to the meat of it. And, of course, you could play this thing for 10 minutes. Certainly Abdullah Ibrahim has played it for that long in concert. But it's really learning the head, learning the tune on this, which is going to be the big challenge. So I think we should go to a split screen now, and we'll get to work on Tintiyana. Start off just with the bass line that we're going to use. It's nice with that slide. There's our first melody. And to G. Back to D. Up, gospel chords. Do that again. To G, back to D. Up. Gospel. Second melody. Reach again. And the G. Reach again. Chords. Gospel. Again. Not so bad. Reach. 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 Chords. Gospel. I'll improvise. Once more improvise. Thumb piano. And some descending chords. Gospel. Reach again. Reach. Reach. Gospel chords. First melody.